red-haired beauty Lalla Salma, is the wife of King Mohammed VI of Morocco. To take her as his wife, the king dissolved the harem of more than 50 concubines. This condition was set to him by Salma, a girl from an ordinary Moroccan family, wishing to become the only woman of the king. This story began romantically as in the TV series, but ended mysteriously and tragically. Where's Lalla Salma now? How is the king's sister involved in her disappearance? In this video you will find out how the wonderful Cinderella story of the 21st century turned into a terrible thriller. Before marriage, Salma Beneni and her monarch fiancé lived in parallel universes. The future First Lady of Morocco was born in the family of a school teacher from the city of Fez in the north of the country. She was left early without a mother, and her father was usually late at work. Therefore, the girl was brought up mainly by her grandmother. She used to teach Salma to obedience and tried to make of her ward an ideal Muslim housewife. However, the girl was drawn to study and active life. Salma went to university, choosing an engineering specialty. After graduation, Salma got a job in the largest private company in Morocco, Omnium North Africa. As it turned out later, it was a life-changing decision. When the girl was 21 years old, the management of the company organized a corporate party. By coincidence, Mohammed, who was still a prince at the time, turned up at the event. At that time he was 36 years old, but a solid age difference didn't prevent a man and a woman from falling in love with each other. It was true love. In any case, this is what all the witnesses of the novel Salma and Mohammed say. In the end, the prince on a white horse met a simple girl and took her to the palace. However, at the time of the wedding, which happened in 2002, Mohammed had already received the title of king. Under Moroccan law, Salma was forbidden to be crowned because of her lowly origins, but her husband loved her so much that for the first time in the country's history an exception was made. The woman became queen and received the prefix to her name, Lalla. In Arabic, Lalla means woman of royalty. In addition, Salma turned out to be the only spouse of the monarch. For her sake, Mohammed refused to take more wives, which was done by all his predecessors. The young queen was very much loved by the common people. As a rule, in Islamic monarchies, the wives of kings and sheikhs are in the shadow of their husbands. They rarely appear in public, which could not be said of the progressive Lalla Salma. She shone in aristocratic receptions and graced Mohammed's foreign trips with her presence. In 2011, she even replaced her husband at the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton, becoming the envoy of an entire country. Moroccans were proud that their queen was so smart, beautiful and modern. Everything was perfect in the relationship between Mohammed and Salma. The husband showered his wife with gifts, among which were Arabian horses, luxury cars, and even castles. In 2003, the couple had a son Moulay, and 4 years later a daughter Khadija. Magical fate, perfect family, universal love, excellent future. But in December 2017 there was a fateful turn in Salma's destiny. Then she appeared in public for the last time, after which she was literally turned off from the agenda of the royal court. The breakup between the spouses became obvious after 3 months. King Mohammed underwent a serious heart surgery, but his wife was absent among the visitors of the sick monarch. The story could look trivial because another divorce in an aristocratic family is no surprise to anyone, if it weren't for one thing. Since then, no one has ever seen Lalla Salma anywhere. To be more precise, there is no reliable confirmation of this. A year after the Queen's disappearance, an information bomb exploded in the Moroccan segment of the internet. Citing sources in the palace, it was reported that Queen Salma was killed by the sister of Mohammed VI. The information was publicized on several Moroccan and Algerian sites. Later, more horrific details emerged. Allegedly, when the monarch went to the clinic for surgery, there was a major quarrel between his younger sister Lalla Hasna and Salma. Hassan accused the queen of preparing to tell the world about Mohammed's shameful secrets. In a fit of rage, the king's sister stabbed Salma with a knife and killing her. According to investigators, the monarch's administration immediately began covering its tracks. The queen's body was secretly buried in the backyard of the palace, and her name simply ceased to be mentioned. Since the disappearance had a serious public resonance, a controlled information leak was organized in 2019. The lawyer of the royal family as if casually said that Salma is no longer Mohammed's wife. This can be interpreted as a divorce, but not at all a murder. Many don't believe in this version, because after 2018 Lalla Salma disappeared without a trace. Shameful secrets of King Mohammed, because of which his spouse was allegedly killed, may indeed exist. By the standards of the Islamic world, it could cost Mohammed not only his throne, but also his freedom. It is nothing less than the homosexual orientation of the ruler of Morocco. French journalists Éric Laurent and Catherine Grassier accused the monarch of having same-sex relations back in 2015. They even wrote a book about the king, which also revealed the special side of his nature. On the eve of the book's release, Paris police suddenly arrested the journalists. They were accused that the authors demanded $3.4 million from Mohammed. In exchange for the money, they undertook not to publish the materials of their investigation. Soon the journalists were released, and the book was never published. Probably the parties came to some agreement and the scandal was hushed up. However, in 2019, the obscene topic resurfaced again. The reason for rumors in Morocco was too strong male friendship between Mohammed and the Azadhar brothers, world champions in MMA fights. At the height of the coronavirus epidemic, when all borders closed, the monarch evacuated them from abroad on a military plane. Subsequently, the king and the three brothers were repeatedly seen together on a private yacht where they spent their leisure time together, as well as on the beaches of Gabon. Could Lalla Salma have been outraged when her husband changed his orientation and traded her for fighters? Most likely. Of course, the whole royal family, including Lalla Hasna, knew about the piquant disagreements, if there were any. In such a nervous atmosphere, anything could have happened. It is absolutely clear that an incrimination of homosexuality would have put an end to Mohammed's continued rule. Morocco's conservative population wouldn't have tolerated a gay king in power. Moreover, instead of a palace, the monarch could have ended up in prison. Under local law, men face up to 3 years in prison for same-sex relations, and the law is actively enforced. However, it is possible that Salma is still alive. She was simply kicked out of the palace and under penalty of punishment forced to lead a reclusive lifestyle. In favor of this version is the only photo allegedly taken in 2019, where Salma walks with children in New York. However, since then, there has been no further news about the princess's whereabouts. Given that no Moroccan king has ever been divorced before, it's likely that their divorce may be kept from the public, especially since discussions about the royal family in the press are forbidden in Morocco, and no media outlet dares to ask questions about the princess' disappearance or where she might be now. So it's quite possible that Salma lives somewhere near the royal palace to see her children at least occasionally. What was once a fairy tale has become a mystery. After a dizzying rise, Salma overnight lost everything: wealth, power, children, and possibly her life. We'll look forward to the continuation of this story. See you in the next videos.